Should misogynists be given dating lessons? 0207 862 2222. That's a suggestion floated by a man called Andrew Thomas. He's a world-leading expert on incels, which is the online movement of so-called involuntarily celibate men who harbour extreme bitterness towards women. He argues that teaching some of these outsiders how to form healthy relationships could help them change their views and reconnect with society. He'll speak to us in a moment, but let's talk about this first. What do you think about these incels, Matthew? Seem to get everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, on the outset, this sounds terrible. Really bad idea. The ethics of it. What woman is agreeing to go on a date with a misogynist? How do you set it up? How is it controlled? I dug under the bonnet a little bit deeper, and it's more about people that are a bit socially awkward. He hints at autistic traits and people that have been bullied and social isolation, which is a big thing in young men. But I'm not a believer. You know, he wants to bring them closer to 50% of the population. But these people have mothers. They may have sisters. They may have cousins and aunts and other females in their life. And I think the way that you defeat things like this is through better role models. I don't think it is through trying to put people together. Through experience, yes, a little bit. But people gravitate towards these sort of movements when they have a lack of community, a lack of faith, lack of friends. And I think that's what we're missing a lot of in young people's lives. They're constantly enamoured in their phones, and I'm just as bad. Adults are just the same, in fairness. I just don't think this is the right way to go about it, and can potentially put, you know, some women in danger depending on what he's on about. I don't think you can speed date your way out of these situations.
Well, I suppose if an incel suddenly finds themselves in front of 10 women, they might change their views.
I think this is, yeah, I mean, I've got to say I agree with Matthew here. I think that the safety of those women obviously has to be taken into account. I'd like to see how we're defining incel. I mean, of incel meaning somebody that's involuntarily celibate. We used to just call them people that weren't very good with women. I mean, really, I think that this kind of subculture online is overstated.
That's it, isn't it? I mean, you've nailed it. It's basically people who've, you know, they've tried to chat up a few people, they've failed, and they decided that's now a lifestyle,
yes.
And they're going to be angry.
Yeah, they're angry, they might be upset, they might be horrible towards women. But I mean, I honestly think so what? Obviously, a lot of these people end up committing, not a lot of them, sorry, a minority of them end up committing violent crimes towards women. Of course, that's sort of the root of this. I cannot see how forcing people, first of all, how do you define who these people are? Are you going to go and find, hi guys, who here is really bad with women? Let me just go and solve this for you.
They're all online.
No one's going to come forward.
Well, they tag themselves online. I mean, they're an online
They're all
community.
anonymous. They're all anonymous.
I don't think we should give the community the credence it so craves. What these people are is misogynists. Call them whatever you want, they're misogynists. Misogyny is a sickness in our society, as we see from the increase in violence against women and girls and mass murder against women from particular men. And that is the stuff that needs to be challenged, not through, oh, well, if you meet this woman, you might like it. Because what do we do when they are rejected again?
Yeah.
I think partly it's children being mollycoddled a little bit, and we don't prepare our children for the world. I noticed a shift after the sad Madeleine McCann case, and I noticed a lot of parents thought they could protect their kids from everything, and you can't. Your kids will fall out of trees, they'll break their arms, they'll get into trouble, there's all sorts of stuff. And we end up wrapping them up in cotton wool, and we don't normalise resilience enough. OK, let's bring in Andrew Thomas himself. He's the senior lecturer at the University of Swansea and the author of this very big study into incels, the largest ever. So help us. Reem said that basically an incel is somebody who's not very good with women. Is that a good definition?
Yeah. So pleasure to be on the show. So I'm loving some of the stuff I'm hearing from the panelists here because it's actually adding a bit more nuance in. So you're 100% right. If you think about incels, what does that mean? Some of the research we're doing is with some of the first big piece of research to really get under the hood of that. What is that? And you actually find that there's a huge amount of variation. So in incel, some people are using involuntary celibate as just a label for their relationship status. I'm single and that feels out of my hands, and actually have very little to do with any of the online communities. And then you have a broad spectrum that goes right the way through to people who are really up to their neck in quicksand, deep into the ideology. Just to kind of set the record straight, this is a really good lesson on how clickbait titles really skew the message. So the title that came out attached to the news articles yesterday was a bit misleading. So I'm not actually advocating for blanket date coaching and speed dating for incels. That I think would be irresponsible. The point that I'm making is a much more nuanced one about the development of social skills. So I think what most people would like is some sort of intervention that goes in quite hard, attacking misogynistic ideology. No, that's wrong. Let's nip it in the butt. But the reality is, if you could design something like that that tackles ideology head on, you'd be on for a Nobel Prize. It's not, that's something that's very tricky to do. So what my research team has been doing is going in and saying, well, let's go and get words from the horse's mouth. First of all, who are these incels? What are they saying? What's their background? And does that give us any hints into ways that we might indirectly tackle the ideology? And one of the things that I've seen echoed in my private practice with incels and in the research that we do is that a lot of them have really, really poor social skills. So by this, we mean struggling to make small talk, struggling to make eye contact, struggling to think about what's appropriate to say and what's not, struggling with things like turn taking, which I'm not doing very, very well at right now myself. And because of that, what happens is they tend to withdraw to these online spaces and withdraw from society and withdraw from normal, healthy relationships with women. And the thing is, when you do that, that makes it very easy for misogynistic ideology to take hold, because it puts forward these really sort of bad, negative, incorrect stereotypes about women. And these men, having withdrawn from society, can't say, well, I've got anything in my life that counteracts that.
We need to take some calls, and I'm conscious that you're only probably halfway through. But I hear what you say, but you know, giving them exposure to women might be the way to deal with it. Sarah in Essex, would you be prepared to go into the mouth of the cannon on this one?
100%, yeah, absolutely. Misogyny and, you know, incels, at the root of it, as some of people have already said, the root of it is this insecurity. This hate comes from not being good enough, from this understanding that women want a certain thing. They want a Chad, which is a man that looks a certain way. And if we could, so I run a theatre company called Theatre Inspiring Change, and we tour schools and we do flirting as part of our interactive process, because our young men, well, our young people have to learn how to deal with rejection, have to understand that not everybody fancies everybody, but also the nuances of flirting, also the nuances of when you fancy somebody, what's appropriate, what isn't, how do you read body language, how do you read signals, you know, about how somebody is somebody interested or not. It's absolutely crucial. Let's just stop this hate and deal with it rather than just judging.
OK, thank you, Sarah. Adam in Devon, what do you know of incels, Adam?
Well, I've been on various internet forums and things, and I've seen them. And to be honest, most of the time, I think it's just men trying to express themselves and being labelled misogynists because of programmes such as the one I'm on now, and the constant sort of anti-male rhetoric on the BBC and the kind of barrage of misandry, if you ask me, on BBC Radio 4, which turns men off women, quite frankly. And I think if you want to address the issue of incels, and if there is such an issue as incels, and it's not just a label which has been given to a certain group of men, then you need to look at the larger social structures that are causing it.
Can I ask a question, Adam? Would you describe yourself as an incel?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that, Jeremy. No, I wouldn't describe myself as an incel because in the past I've not been celibate, and I've not been celibate, and also I'm a bisexual. So no, I wouldn't describe myself as that.
I didn't know that's a dimension. I hadn't even thought that you can't be an incel if you're bisexual. Matthew.
Adam, can I ask a question? If you feel it's men that's expressing themselves, then that's sort of fine. What do you think people are trying to stop you from expressing if this is just men expressing themselves, speaking in a certain way about women?
Men expressing their feelings, expressing how they feel about women, and expressing their experiences and why their experiences have turned them off women.
And you don't feel this leans into misogyny in any way? If it's, I dislike this woman because she's potentially rejected me and it's turned me off women and I'm very angry about it, because that's the picture that's painted here.
I think you need to look at misandry instead, and the fact that women constantly want bad boys, and it becomes like a competition as to who can behave the baddest.
Do you know?
And the different spheres, the way men in the workplace are required to be really quite
fascinating.
womanly.
Let me bring in we only have one woman on the panel. You're saying that we're anti-male. We've got 3 out of 4 blokes here.
I've got to say, Adam, I'm pretty shocked by some of the stuff that you've been saying here. So you don't believe that the incel online community is a problem at all. You don't view it as misogyny. Can I just ask, what has your relationship with women been like in the past? And do you think that has impacted your view of women?
I think being bullied by women in the workplace has impacted my view of women. Yeah, I think it's being expected to be sort of ultra masculine in some ways, and has impacted my view. And
to be ultra masculine.
Yeah, not to have any emotions or feelings, and just to be really treated like absolute rubbish, to be honest. And by women, and sort of to be bitched about all day, if you like. Oh, and you're going to say, oh, that's gendered language. Well, so what if it is? It's an accurate description, quite frankly.
Well,
and,
I mean, this is so. Well, let me bring in the professor here. I'm afraid to say, well, I think we do have an incel on the line here, Professor. So what would you say to Adam?
So I think this really speaks to one of my central points, which is there's this schism that's growing between men and women. The one thing I would say in Adam's favour is that a lot of men feel like when they have frustrations around women that they're not allowed to talk about it, and that's why they retreat to some of these online spaces, and that's really where the misogynistic views fester. But it really boils down to this. I truly think that, and some of your viewers will know people in their life who, maybe they're a woman who says that they hate all men, or maybe they're a man that says they hate all women. If you think about people like that, who are basically saying, I don't get on with 50% of the population, I challenge your viewers to think, do they know anyone like that who's actually happy with their life? Because I've never met someone who's happy hating 50% of the population. And I think we're becoming more and more polarized in the country. Politically, spiritually, philosophically, and I think we need to be brought back together because we do need each other. Men need women, and women need men.
Adam, what would convince
you that those barriers?
Okay, Adam, what would convince you that women are not all bad?
I don't suggest that women are all bad. I suggest that we live in a society in which men are required to behave a certain way. In love, they're required to be as bad boy as possible by the behaviour of women, and the behaviour of women gets worse and worse as time goes on, quite frankly. And then in the home, they're expected to be very
Adam,
very masculine.
Who requires you to be like this? Who is requiring you to act in that way?
Women require me to act in that way. Women require men to be extremely blokey. The more bad boy, the more attractive.
Adam,
they always go to the attractive one. You have created a marketplace of men.
So interesting. Matthew.
Adam, I'd like to try and give you a bit of hope. I'm not here to condescend, and I'm not here to have a bit of a bun fight with you after hearing what you've said. My partner says she loves me, despite being a 6'3" bloke that can handle himself, because of my sensitivity and because I'm a nice person that cares. Please don't let people put you off because you think you have to be something. You are perfectly fine as you are. This isn't intended to be condescending, but there will be somewhere that appreciates your nature in however you naturally are. Please don't put it under misogyny and whatever else.
Adam, I'm going to just...
Could I come in on that?
Yes,
Is that all right? Because for as much as Matt, I understand your sentiment, I think things like that really aren't helping, and this kind of shows how people don't really understand the incel community, because an incel will come back straight away and say, well, you're 6'3", height is desirable in women, I'm 5'7", it's hopeless for me, it's not personality that counts. And what we need to do is we need to think about those types of arguments and what's wrong with those arguments, and attacking at that level. That sort of generic advice is something that just bounces off of the incel rhetoric.
Okay. Adam, do you want to say anything else before we let you go, Adam?
No, I feel that sometimes at work men are required to be very submissive, very womanly, and this contrast with and then at other times they're expected not to have any emotions, be very masculine. Men are expected to be all things to all people, and it doesn't work.
All right, thank you so much. That's so fascinating, because of course the Andrew Tate model is to be, you know, that person with the biceps and smoking.
I will say,
and Adam thinks that what is he? I can't really understand, because it's too. He thinks men need to be bad boys, but at the same time, women want them to be more sensitive. I don't really necessarily understand this sort of. I think he's just very, very cross.
I think very cross with women. It sounds. Well, I will say it sounds as though. I mean, look, somebody like Adam. I think it's important to be compassionate. I will say I think we have to target those particular opinions at the root of it. If you're somebody that has had a really awful experience with women over the course of your life, you've probably only met 0.00001% of the population of women, and actually there are so many women out there, many of whom are unconventional themselves, many women that struggle to date men themselves. And so, Adam, if you're still listening, there is definitely somebody out there for you.
But saying that again,
and this is the whole point, right? So if you get men socializing more with women, they will have the counter evidence. If you don't, they're just left to their own devices, which at the moment are these online misogynistic communities, which are constantly posting the worst examples of female behavior they can find.
And it sounded like as if Adam had a problem at work with one or more women, and got really sort of toasted.
And that's one workplace and one or two women out of the millions out there.
But then it's gone into his bloodstream. Damien is in Somerset. Sorry to keep you waiting there, Damien. What do you think? No, Damien. That's fine. We've got no time for delays.
Very quickly.
Go on, quickly.
What can we do as men to try and help?
Well, can we hang on? No, before you ask that, can we take another caller? Sorry, Charlotte in Kent. Hello.
Hello. I was just going to say that I was very surprised by my 17-year-old son, who said that a lot of his friends at school are going to have no idea how to date women because they've been influenced online by misogyny. And I think that's quite worrying that there's children in schools that he's already commenting aren't going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you'd persuade them to have dating lessons.
Well, let me let Matthew ask his question to the professor now.
Yeah, because I feel a bit helpless sometimes with this stuff. And if you're saying I'm not quite coming out with the right stuff, what can we do as men who may know other men like that and in an aim to reach? Because I listened to the previous call.
Just quickly, please.
So what our research is basically showing is that one of the sort of profiles of incels are those who lack social skills, have really poor self-esteem, and have experienced bullying at a young age. And what I would say is if you can see men like that in your community, that is a good time to intervene and sort of bring them as part of your social group and start building friendships with them. They're ostracized.
Thank you so much, Andrew Thomas. Really interesting.